another thing that I think is very interesting, because like one of the things that I worry about a lot is the Nazi Germany being implemented in Canada. You thought I was going down the like.
All right, let's go there.
Let's do it. No, but like the Nazi, like the fucking lockdown, all the totalitarian approach that Canada is taking Ontario is taking to the coronavirus thing, and it's like my issue with the entire thing is there's just no communication. So like they did lock down at the beginning because they're like, we don't know what's going on, so we'll just lock down. But then every time someone brings up some very good points, they just like Roman Baber is a very well-known politician who was on the conservative side, who is in charge of Ontario, and he wrote a document, like an open letter. He tried working it out internally, no one listened to him, and then he wrote an open letter and he's like, hey, like there's some issues with these lockdowns here because there's substantial cost to these. This isn't just we're locking down and then coronavirus will go away. It's like bro, like everyone's miserable, like drug overdoses are up a lot, like suicides through the roof. Like my buddy actually, I just found out he tried to kill himself like very recently. And I'm like, fuck, like, you know, and
he's not somebody who's in the age group who would be susceptible.
Yeah, exactly. Right? He's 30 years old. He's like
he could take COVID and it'd be just fine.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But then this dude who wrote that open letter, he just got fired. They just like removed him from the political party, and then they don't address any of his points. And then the old chief medical officer, he's like, no, I actually agree with him, and I like his points. And then he's pretty much gone on a big thing, like, hey, here's all the problems that I'm seeing with it. And they just aren't addressing any of that, you know? And if you do want to lock down, I feel if you communicate that more effectively, if you communicate, hey, here's what's going on, instead of just saying, hey, like, look, cases are rising, here's what we have to do, you know? Like then they just lock down. And then now they just had a big rally with like thousands upon thousands of people protesting to end the lockdown. It's going to get to violent revolution pretty soon. I assume and kind of hope, like, because we sort of need that. And it's like all of that could have been avoided if they just sat down and have a conversation, and they aren't doing it, and like they aren't addressing any of the very reasonable points. And so maybe like it's because they're scared because they fucked up at certain points, and they're scared if they come clean about it, they're not going to, then they're going to get like, they might get sued because they let so many people die when they had opposing information, so they've just doubled down on their situation. But it's like the longer you let this go, the longer you let this fester, the worse the problem is going to get. And now it's like getting to the point where it's like, yeah, like literally we can't even, like this person can't even exist in Ontario because he's giving the police powers to fucking ticket card people and see like, do you have a good reason for being out of your house? And if you don't, like it's a $7,000 fine, you know, or however much it is. And it's like, if they had just had a conversation and like been open and if they were
how exactly what, because to me I'm wondering how exactly you would, to me it seems like it's not that easy to fix or prevent such a complex issue. Like what specifically would the conversation have to be, and who would be involved? Like what is the hypothetical scenario you're describing here where a conversation would have fixed it?
Like, I think number one, a lot of the very reputable people are coming out and saying, hey, here's the issue. And if they were to just do a press conference and go word by word, hey, here's what this person said, here's exactly why this won't work, like we've checked through all of these things, you know, like and we've all determined that being in lockdown is the best solution, you know? But they're not saying any of that, so then it just makes people be like, why are you ignoring this guy? And all of your shit doesn't make any sense. So, and like I'm dropping a video tomorrow about this where it's like, here's the percentage chance dying of COVID if you're not in a long-term care home. It's less than 1%, including all the people with comorbidities, all the people at 60, all the people who are 70 but not in a long-term care home, including all them. It's this. And then you guys say that the hospital system's getting overwhelmed. It actually only takes 4 months to train a regular nurse to be an ICU nurse. And how many have you trained? And Roman Baber asked that in Parliament, and like, why are we still getting overwhelmed if the problem is nursing? And it's pretty easy to actually get more nurses. So why hasn't, like, he asked specifically, like, how many have you trained in the last year? And they just, like, non-answer. And it's just a little bit sketchy, you know? So it's just like, if they're more open about it, then yeah, like, maybe they're gonna be open. They're gonna be like, look, we fucked up here. We fucked up like 6 months ago, and like, okay, we're just stopping here, and we'll lift all these restrictions, you know? But that conversation hasn't been happened, so now like, it's at the point where there's just massive protests, and no one's going to listen to anything anymore because they're too fucked. And like an example, in my personal life, I had a client come up and they're like, hey, we need we have a budget of this for 2 videos, and we want a really good video that's going to be like of your higher quality, you know? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And then the guys who are capable of doing these videos aren't available, you know? And I was sitting there like fucking scrambling, like trying to figure out, how am I going to get a video of like this quality for these guys, and we need it in 3 weeks. And I was trying to figure that out, couldn't figure it out. And then I just went to them and I was like, hey guys, like, I'm sorry, but like, the timeline that we're looking at here, we can't make it. We can't do it. And I'm sorry, like, here's the options that you have available. And yeah, if you want any of these, that's fine. If you want to go with someone else, that's fine. And then they're like, okay, we'll just get like the lower level options that you can do in this time, you know? But it's like, I was willing to just be honest with them and say like, hey, like, I can't do what you're asking to do. And so if you don't want to work with me, that's fine. If you do want to work with me, that's fine, but it's going to be like kind of a worser quality than you're expecting, you know? And like, just that willingness to like, I guess, lose the client, you know? It's like, well, they even said like, hey, like, appreciate like the transparency. And like, that transparency is all anyone really wants. And if you don't have that in your business, if you don't have that in your relationship, if you don't like if there's something your wife does that's pissing you off and you just don't mention it, and then it explodes one day, it's like, well, like, you had to, like, it was your responsibility to like deal with this before it became a problem, you know?